for unpaid loans and airfare.
Judy enters.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2040, Harvey versus Kelly.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey, according to what you wrote in your complaint, you've known Mr. Kelly since college?
Yes.
And you dated in college?
Yes.
That was more than 30 years ago?
Yes.
And according to Mr. Kelly, you broke up with him in
Yes.
college. In what year was that?
Oh, gosh. That was what?
Do you remember?
92, I believe, Your Honor.
Okay.
And then somehow you reconnected. I assume you both had lives in between 1992 and 2022. When did you reconnect?
In April of 2021.
How?
Well, he was looking for me, so
He was looking for you.
he emailed my best friend. He emailed her business and asked her, well, gave her his number and
said-
asked that I call him.
So far correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you were interested in seeing her again. In that 30-year period, did either of you have other people in your lives, have children, marry?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, how long were you married?
I was married for 10 years.
Have any kids?
Yes, 2 kids.
And you, sir?
11 years. And
Have any children?
One child, yes.
Both divorced?
Yes.
Okay, that could have made an interesting love story, but didn't happen. Okay, so you wanted to reconnect with her. You got in touch with a friend of hers through a business number, and you called him?
Yes, I did.
And that was in April of 2021?
Yes.
Where did you live at the time?
Detroit, Michigan.
And you, sir?
Colton, California.
When was the first time you actually saw each other?
April of 2021.
You live in Michigan,
Yes.
but you have a child who lives in California.
I do.
How old is that child?
21.
Male or female?
Male.
And where does he live now?
With his dad.
When you come down to see him, where do you stay?
In the past, sometimes I would stay with his dad, and sometimes I would stay in a hotel.
So when you visited him, you either stayed with his father or your ex-husband,
Yes.
or stayed in a hotel,
Yes.
depending upon the circumstance. Most of the time, did you stay at the house with his father, or most of the time in a hotel?
Most of the time in the past, I stayed in the house with his father.
And is this his father's only child as well?
We have 2 children
Two
together.
children.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the other child?
She's in Chicago, Illinois.
How old is she?
26.
So you see her less frequently than you see your son?
I probably see them about the same.
Do you go to visit her in Chicago?
Yes.
And you go to visit your son in California?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm gathering happened is you saw each other for a while, you thought it was an exclusive relationship, you did not.
At first, yes, I did, Your Honor.
And then what happened?
The last time I saw her was in Detroit, and when I returned from Detroit, the girl that I was seeing at the time had disappeared.
You mean the girl that you were seeing prior to seeing her?
Right, exactly. And I thought the relationship was over. She went deep into Mexico, and I hadn't heard from her. She had to go for some family business, and then she resurfaced once I came back. And
Once you came back from California on your last trip?
once I came back from Detroit.
From Detroit?
Spending time with her.
To
Yeah.
California?
And so we started talking again, and I didn't get in contact with her. She was trying to contact me, and so
So
I
you
let
stopped answering her calls?
No, not really. I called her, and I let her know that, the girl resurfaced and that I didn't think it was going to be able to work out between me and her. And that's when the problem came along.
The problems with regard to money?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what your lawsuit is about. So you broke up with her, and at that time, according to you, you had unpaid advances to him for an airline ticket and car repairs and some small amount of money for a new grandchild that he had, some baby items. So let's start with the plane ticket. When was the plane ticket?
The plane ticket was purchased in May. It was to go and see him for his birthday.
Okay. Was this the only time that there was an airfare issue? Who paid for the airfare? Because he would drive most of the time.
He drove one time. I flew, and this was the only time that he said he would pay for the ticket. I paid the other time.
Okay, well, tell me about his discussion with you of paying for this ticket.
Sure.
In May.
So he wanted me to come for his birthday.
When is your birthday?
In June, Your Honor.
And I told him that I was looking for tickets.
He said, I want you to come for my birthday.
Yes.
No, tell me what he said.
He said...
Tell me what he said. No, don't look over there. Look over here.
He said, I'm going to fly my boo thing out.
Okay. And?
And later, I looked for tickets, and he said, oh, I was going to give you $500.
Okay, and you purchased the ticket, and that was in May of what year?
That was in May of 2021. We agreed that I would put the ticket on my credit card.
And when you got to his home in California, did he give you the $500?
He did not give me the $500.
When did you ask him for it again?
I didn't ask him for it while I was there.
And then?
And then when I was back home, he told me that he was going to take care of it. He said he was trying to get his money together to come to Detroit, and he was crunching numbers. And
No, I'm talking about the airline ticket.
Right. Then he said, I need to give that money to you this week, right? And I told him I had made a payment on a credit card and he could have more time. And so he said he would take care of it. He said, I'll take care of it when I'm there the 1st of August.
Did he come the 1st of August?
He came in August, yes.
Okay, and what happened in August?
He came in August. We was there. We did not have any discussion about money until he told me that his account was compromised and somebody owed him some money and didn't give him the money. And so that's when he asked for the other loan amount.
For the other amount of money? You mean he was in Michigan when he asked for more money?
Yes.
Well, when he asked for any money. You had
Correct.
never given him money before.
Correct.
Tell me about it.
So he sent me a text message, and he asked if I could go to the credit union and take out a loan for him.
I'd like to see that.
Sure.
Please, if it was in a text message.
Devonna produces a document, then hands it to Kevin, who brings it to Judy.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly,
Yes, Your Honor.
can you check with your credit union and see if you could get a personal loan for $1,000 and I can make payments on it because I don't even have my gas money to get out here? And she responds, I can loan you $1,000. Is that all you need? And you respond to her, well, the $500 I'm short would be perfect if you can.
$1,500.
$1,500, excuse me. $1,500.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, what do you think that meant?
Caption, coming up.
Hey, baby, you think you can make that loan and even $2,000?
No, I'm saying the money wasn't a problem until I dumped her.
I don't care if it was a problem a lot. You said it was a loan.
Exactly.
Pay careful attention. If you want a dog that guarantees you practically a nice disposition, buy a golden doodle, not a wolf.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Devonna and Ted.
Devonna Harvey says her ex-boyfriend, Ted Kelly Jr., owes for an unpaid loan and airfare.
Well, what do you think that meant?
That she was going to give me the money. But the reason the car was having the problems is because I drove it out there to see her.
No, it's not what this says at all.
Well, a couple days later.
Shh.
Sure.
That's not what this says at all. It says I'm in a hole. Can you go and get money from the credit union? Can you get $1,000? And she was nice, and she said to you, is that all you need? And you said, well, as long as you're going, I could actually use $1,500. That would be perfect.
Right. I didn't know that we were keeping tabs on things because I've spent money on her and never asked her for anything.
It's not a question of spending money, sir. Spending money on her is chivalrous.
She came to see me on my birthday, but I bought her gifts. And I took her to Mexico for 4 days.
7 years of college and law school. I took the bar exam. I've been a judge for over 40 years. You think I'm going to listen to you buying her a hamburger? That's not what this is about, sir.
It wasn't a hamburger.
Or a present. That's what people do. You told me, sir, that you were in an exclusive relationship until your girlfriend from Mexico resurfaced. That's what you told me. So buying each other presents is not an issue. Did you tell her?
Just like the plane tickets. I went to see her in college, and I didn't try to charge her for the plane ticket. She came to see me, and we never had that issue.
Are you talking about when you were in college?
No, I'm talking about the plane tickets. We never had an issue with me having to pay a plane ticket for her to come and see me.
I know that, but she said this one was different. This one ticket, not all the others when you visited. This one ticket, you said you wanted her to come for your birthday, and you said you would pay for the ticket.
She wanted to come, Your Honor. It wasn't just
She said you said to her, I want you to come for my birthday. I'll pay for the ticket.
Because she had the time that she could go at any time that she wanted to. She was planning to come out here anyway because her son was here.
I understand you tell me that now. Did you ask her to come out for your birthday, is my question.
Yes, probably so.
Okay. How much was the airline ticket?
$500.
Show me.
Devonna produces a document, then hands it to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
$446.80.
So with bags, it was $500.
I don't care about the bags. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me about these baby items. That's the last thing on your menu.
But we didn't finish with the other.
We finished with it.
But he asked me for an additional $500 after that $1,500. 2 days later, I have that here too.
I'd like to see it, please.
Devonna produces another document, then hands it to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
On Friday, August 20th, said, hey, baby, I had a question. Do you think you can make that loan in even $2,000? Because I need to get a few things done on the car. And she says, yes, but I can't get to the bank today. I can hit the ATM on my way home. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
What was that?
And there was never nothing said about a time limit or nothing until I got back.
Hey, baby, you think you can make that loan and even $2,000?
No, I'm saying the money wasn't a problem until I dumped her.
I don't care if it was a problem a lot. You said it was a loan.
Exactly. And when I told her I'd pay her back, she didn't hear from me, so then now we're here.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's a lot of mumbo-jumbo gibberish. Okay, $2446.88. Now tell me about the baby items.
So he asked me...
When?
Text message, that was...
When?
In July 8th, I'm sorry.
So this was before you loaned him the other money?
Yeah.
Okay, so in July...
He asked me, did I have Cash App? And I told him I did, because I thought, and I gave him my Cash App handle because I thought he was trying to pay me the airline ticket. But he said, no, the problem was that he didn't have Cash App, and he was trying to get his son's baby's mother some money and wanted to know if I could send it for him because I had Cash App.
How much money did he need for his son's
There were
girlfriend?
2 occasions. One was $60 and one was $50.
Do you recall that, Mr. Kelly?
I don't recall her not getting the money for that. I didn't do it because he wasn't in the area where I can give it to him, and I didn't have Cash App, and she sent it on the Cash App, but I gave her the cash for that.
And that was in July?
Yes, while I was still there.
He never gave me any cash.
I don't think so either, because then you borrowed all this money the next month.
He also asked for a Western Union.
$25.56. Just for my own curiosity, sir, are you still with the girlfriend who disappeared to Mexico?
Yes.
Yes, you live together?
No.
Okay, well, it wasn't the ending that perhaps you all envisioned, but you borrowed this money from her, sir, and you have to return it. $25.56, judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Devonna.
Obviously, I'm happy.
Well, technically, yeah, it was a loan,
Judge saw through what he was trying to say. I don't know what he was trying to say.
but I spent money on her, and I never kept tabs on it.
Oh my gosh, he just asked me for a lot of money.
I wasn't in love with her, and somebody else came back from the past.
No, I just want my money, and I told him that. I just want my money.
Sarah and Judy.
So I'm curious, Judge, the ratio of cases that you've seen of women loaning men money versus the other way around, men loaning women, their girlfriends, money.
I think I would have to go with 80-20.
I would agree.
This woman has somebody who's reasonable. He, on the other hand, she was okay until his girlfriend from Mexico resurfaced, and he broke up with her. I think he probably was hurt all the years from college that she broke up with him, because he talks about it in his answer. But women really have to be smarter.
Invested in yourself would be my best advice for women.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Case number 2045, Vervick versus Baez. All parties, please step forward.
Howard Verbrick is suing his former customers, Angela and Jimmy Baez, for loss of income and the cost of a wolf dog.
Mr. Verbrick, what do you do for a living?
I'm an auto mechanic,
Who do you live with?
myself.
When did you get into breeding and selling wolf dogs?
Approximately 8 years ago,
Why?
I found the animals fascinating.
Whitney shakes her head. Caption coming up.
Why would any normal person want to own with 219 breeds or more in this country, in the world of dogs? Why would you take a dog that is in part, and you don't know what part, wild wolf?
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Howard, Angela, and Jimmy.
Howard Verberick claims his former customers, Angela and Jimmy Bias, owe for the cost of a wolf dog. Angela and Jimmy are countersuing for harassment.
This is your case. The defendants purchased one of your puppies several years ago.
One, yes.
And a couple of years later, according to you, they were looking for a second dog.
Yes.
Did they contact you
Yes.
by phone,
Through messaging.
which you have?
Yes.
Okay, and I will take a look at it at an appropriate time. That they were looking for, I think they were looking for a male, they had a female,
Correct.
and you were prepared to accommodate that. Did you give them the price for the dog?
Yes.
What was that?
At the time, it was $800.
And after certain discussions with them, was that price ever modified?
Yes, it was.
To what?
Angela thought that the $800 was a little expensive and
How much had they paid for the first dog?
$500.
Okay.
The reasoning being they helped me sell some.
No, just years before, they had paid $500. You were asking $800 for this male.
It was $800 back then also. Under the circumstances, if they helped me sell animals, then I would give them a deal. and
Did
cut
they
the
do
price.
that for you the first time that
Yes,
they?
ma'am.
So the first time that they bought a puppy from you, they paid $500 and assisted you in finding owners for other puppies.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Second time, you asked for $800.
Yes,
And then did you make the same deal with them?
I did.
How many puppies did you have?
At the time, I had 6.
Did they come over and see the puppies?
No.
Isn't that usual to come over and pick one, unless you only had one male?
Sometimes I've sold other people animals throughout the United States by pictures only and updated photographs.
On what date did you go and pick up your puppy?
He dropped the puppy off to us on, I think it was March 22nd.
How far does he live from you?
About 40 miles, 30
So
miles.
you could have easily gone to see the litter.
Yes, correct.
So you chose for him to drop the puppy off.
Well, he kind of messaged us, and we had a phone conversation where he stated that he couldn't feed the puppies anymore.
No, that's not what I'm asking you. I know you have a script that you want to tell me about because you have something in your head, but that's not what I asked you. What I asked you was you could have gone to look at the litter of puppies.
Correct.
And picked out which one you wanted.
Correct.
You chose to have him deliver it to you.
Yes.
That was my question. He delivered to you a male puppy. How old was the puppy you delivered to them?
Approximately 9.5 weeks.
I don't know if that's an appropriate time for wolf dog puppies, but 10 weeks is a reasonable time to separate puppies from the litter and their mother. I know that that's not what I went to law school for, but you require a certain amount of nonsense information over the course of a lifetime. Anyway, did they pay you for that dog?
No.
What was the arrangement?
According to Angela, I got 3 different amounts. She was going to give me a $100 deposit and $100 a week, a $150 deposit, then $100 a week, and a $200 deposit and $100 a week. I got nothing.
At what purchase price?
She was thinking the $500 when I was asking the $800.
That's not what I said. Did you ultimately make an arrangement with her for $500 if she helped you find other pet owners? Okay, let's be direct. So you agreed to make them the same deal with this dog as you made with the last.
Correct.
Which is, I'll give you if you help find other potential prospects for the other puppies.
Correct.
So purchase price was $500, and they did find you other people for the puppies.
1, yes.
Well, they found one. It wasn't specified. They found one. And did you place that puppy?
Yes.
This is what your lawsuit is about. You say that she didn't pay you any money, and the people who you placed the other dog with did not finish paying you.
Correct.
Well, they're not responsible for that person. They're not responsible for that person unless you gave them the dog in order to collect the money. Okay. Or did you drop the puppy off?
I dropped the puppy off at their house.
Then that's your problem. Okay. So then what we're dealing is the $500 that you claim they owe you for the dog.
Oh, plus potential loss of income.
Oh, no, yeah, be ridiculous. Okay, $500. Let me hear your excuse.
I think that the dog has been abused, and I have video proving.
And?
The male won't ever come around.
Just a second, and?
The male does not like males. What he'll do is he will cower at the sight of any male. He's very aggressive when he goes to take food from you.
He was 10.5 weeks old.
We've had him for 8 months now, and we still can't touch him.
But you got him, and he was 9.5 weeks old.
And he's still the same.
You got him when he was 9.5 weeks old. So that's not a reason not to pay for him. You still have him.
He needs proper care, and we don't feel like we should pay anything.
No.
Not with what we have to deal with the dog emotionally and everything else.
Well, unfortunately, the law does not agree with you. You agreed to pay him $500 for a dog. You have the dog, and you have to pay him the $500 for the dog. That's it. It's an easy case. That was your contract. You didn't make a contract with him for a dog that had a nice disposition. Just pay careful attention. If you want a dog that guarantees you practically a nice disposition, buy a golden doodle, not a wolf. Buy a golden doodle.
Gotcha.
Buy a Shih Tzu. You want a big dog? What's another big dog?
Golden retriever.
Buy a golden retriever. But if you people are odd enough to think that wolf dogs make good pets, not knowing, because I did a little investigation into wolf dogs, are wolf dogs good pets? Because I get my cases early, and I say, why would any normal person want to own, with 219 breeds or more in this country, in the world of dogs, why would you take a dog that is in part, and you don't know what part, wild wolf? Why would you do that? If your animal is aggressive, go look at its history, because sometimes they'll grow up to be friendly, nice dogs, like the first one you had.
First one I have is very well with our kids.
You know, this one, I'm going back to my wolf roots. Well, so it's judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Jimmy.
We more or less rescued this dog.
The dog had no issues before.
He cowers down to any side of a male.
That's just a totally false statement.
It's to the point where he's got to get a trainer.
I hope that it is taken care of, and if they don't want the animal, I'd be glad to take it back and care for it.
We're going to work with him. Yeah, we're not going to let him go.
Judy and Sarah.
Just another example of people who maybe not looked into the history of a dog, a wolf dog. Mm-hmm. And if you read about it,
I did a little before the case.
Yeah.
For water damage.
Judy enters.
Court come to order. All rise.
Be seated, please.
Kevin approaches.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2077, Zacco versus Sheldon Foy.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ms. Sacco, you had some sort of a problem in a shower in your house.
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me briefly what the problem was.
I had a small dribble coming from around a shower valve that was in my master bathroom shower.
Tell me what valve it was. You know, I'm not a...
Well, I have a picture that I can show you.
Just make a circle where the problem was.
I believe it was the top one.
Just make a circle.
Thank you.
Carla marks a document.
Who's Mr. Shelton?
Robbie raises his hand. Kevin brings the document to Judy.
Let's change places with each other. Thank you. Okay, and you saw a water drip?
Yes, very fine little drizzle coming.
You saw water dripping, and according to my complaint, you had seen around the neighborhood a truck, Foy's Plumbing.
Yes, I have.
And that's how you got to Mr. Foy?
Correct. My neighbor had used him.
Did you speak to the neighbor, or did you just remember seeing the truck?
No, I spoke to my neighbor.
Okay. Can you tell me on what date you noticed the leak and on what date you spoke to the neighbor?
Probably around the 10th or so of December.
That was in a shower that you don't use, but your husband uses?
I'm widowed.
Okay, so who told you about the leak?
The housekeeper.
Okay. And then did you check it yourself?
Yes.
And this small leak had been there for a couple of weeks before you got to Mr. Foy?
Correct.
After you spoke to the neighbor and confirmed that this neighbor had used Mr. Foy, when you called Mr. Foy, did you actually speak to him?
No.
Who did you speak to?
It was a woman that answered the phone.
Who answered the phone? Do you know?
Alma did. I'm the office manager.
Okay, could you stand up, please? Tell me your name.
My name is Alma Valdez.
And you work for Mr. Foy?
Yes.
And you have a plumbing company?
Yes, ma'am.
How many employees do you have in the company?
Right now, only 3.
He's not one of them?
Yes, he's one of the employees.
How long has he been an employee?
Oh, on and off 15 years.
What does that mean, on and off?
Well, a couple of times he went to work for another plumbing company and then came back.
Was he an employee of your company, pay careful attention, in December of 2021?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And paid on the books?
Yes.
Is he still an employee?
Yes, he is.
Do you recall receiving the call in December from Miss Seiko?
Yes, I got a call from her on, I believe it was December 28th, saying that she had a leak, and so we set up an appointment for the next day.
Do you remember the conversation you had with her? Did she tell you she had been recommended by a neighbor?
You know, I don't recall. We did set up the appointment for the following day.
That would be December 29th.
Yes.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shelton was the person that Mr. Foy sent to
Correct.
you, and you were a full-time employee of Foy's Plumbing. Tell me what happened when you got there.
When I first got there, I noticed water running out of the handle.
It was dripping out of the handle because it had been there since December 10th.
It was streaming out. It was a pretty decent stream of water coming out.
The plaintiff doesn't use that shower, correct? So the first thing that someone would have done, even me, is turn off the water. Is that what you did?
Well, I wanted to go see what the leak really was.
Well, you looked.
Yeah. First, and then I went out and shut the water off, and then came back in to pull the cartridge to identify. And there's no markings on the plate, so I couldn't really tell exactly what brand it was. We do carry a variety of brands, but more of your typical
You're
brands.
getting too technical with me,
okay.
sir.
Okay.
This is what the case is about. He came out the same day, the 28th. He said he didn't have the part. You have other complaints about his behavior on that day. You say was a little bit off. He left without a different part being put in. And you called another plumber? When?
I called actually my contractor that night to come over and look at it. He came over in the morning,
So he didn't come over that night. He came over the next day.
Correct. The next morning he gave me
Now,
a
you can't tell me
referral.
what he gave you. He's not here. It is your claim that because of the actions of Mr. Shelton, and which are attributable to Mr. Foy, who owns the company, you suffered severe water damage in your house, causing you to have to replace substantial flooring in the house, and you want Mr. Foy to be responsible.
Correct.
You have insurance. I just want to make sure you do have insurance. You're a company.
We're licensed in the state of California.
Okay.
We're required to carry insurance.
That's what the case is about. You want the company to be responsible. They did not come back and fix the problem. Someone else did, but by the time it was remedied, water had already seeped through and under the floors. You have evidence of that. Mr. Foy said that that's not his problem. So I'd like you to tell me what happened on the 29th when Mr. Shelton came. What time did he come in?
I think he came around 12:30. So we came in, went to the bathroom, looked at it, took out the cartridge. He did turn off the water. And then he said he had to go look for the part. He left. He was gone for over an hour, returned, said, I don't have the part, they don't have it. And as he's talking to me, his phone rings again, and it's the plumbing place, and they said, oh, we have the part. He left again for another hour. He comes back the third time, and he says, they still don't have the part. By this time, it's like 3 hours had passed, and I'm sitting in my living room, and I hear tools dropping in the shower. I said to him at one point, do you think you need to call for somebody else, some help? And he said, no, I can handle this.
Did he leave?
5 o'clock, I'm
left.
waiting. I have a friend that shows up at my house because we were going for dinner. And I said, well, we have to wait for the plumber to leave. And she goes, there's no car out front of your house.
You didn't know when he left?
No, I did not know when he left.
Did the shower look as if it had been put back in place? Did it look pretty much like this?
It was like that, but the stream of water that was minuscule before was much stronger.
Okay, that doesn't actually help you.
No.
That hurts you because he said the water was a pretty rapid, is that what you told me? Just 1 second. Could you read back, Whitney, how Mr. Shelton described the water?
He said it was streaming out. It was a pretty decent amount of water coming out.
Yeah, he said that was pretty decent when you got there. And I am correct, Mr. Shelton, that when you left the house that day, you had not found a part to fix it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I am correct that when you went to disassemble it, you turned the water off.
Yes.
Because it was leaking.
Yes.
And then you didn't fix it because you didn't have the right part. And then you turned the water back on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't speak.
Caption, coming up.
Did you tell her that those were her options?
Yes. It would still be
No
leaking.
way.
It would still be leaking.
No way did you say to her, this shower is still going to be leaking.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Carla, Scotty, and Robbie.
Carla Sacco claims plumbers Robbie Shelton and Scotty Foy owe for damage from a water leak.
Now, when you left on the 29th without having put in an appropriate part because you couldn't find it, this leak, which caused you to turn off the water because it was a pretty significant leak, you turned the water back on.
The reason why I turned the water off, because you have to take the cartridge out. If I left the water on and took the cartridge out.
Listen, Mr. Shelton.
I know, that's
Mr.
why I
Shelton,
turned the water
Mr.
off.
Shelton, you're not being a two-process thinker, sir. Let me explain something to you. I came to California from Connecticut to the place where we live in California. I walked into the master bath, to the toilet, et voila, I see a puddle of water around the toilet. I say to myself, Self, you went to law school. You don't know what this is. But it's not a leak that's coming from the back. It's a leak that looks like it's coming from the bottom. So I called engineering. Fortunately, I live in a place where somebody will come up. They came up right away. The first thing they did was turn off the water. Smart, just like you did. Then they opened up the problem, looked at the problem and said, we need a part. Unfortunately, those are not the same parts that we keep in the hotel. We'll have to order it. Turned off the water. Use a different bathroom. For the 2-3 days it needs to get the part. You weren't there. So just pay attention to me, Mr. Foy. You weren't there. I'm just letting you know what common sense is living on the planet for a long time. If you have a leak that's caused by a faulty part, and you don't fix the part because you don't have the part, you turn the water off.
May I point something out? He had to turn off the water to the whole house because there is no shut-off to the shower.
Just a second.
He had turned the water off to the whole house, and he put this cartridge back before he turned the water on.
What difference does it make if he put the cartridge back? He has taken the cartridge apart.
No.
In order to see what it was, he took it out of the wall.
He took it out of the wall, but it does not take it apart.
Mr. Shelton, if your employee, and if what you're saying is accurate, which I don't actually think is accurate, because every room in a house usually has a turn-off valve, especially in the bathroom, so you don't have to turn off all the water to the kitchen and to other bathrooms, perhaps. If there's a problem in the shower, there's a master lever for the whole house, and then there are smaller levers for each.
For everything except the shower, ma'am.
What do you mean for everything except the shower?
The shower does not have an individual shut-off. You do indeed have to shut off the water to the house. The vanities, the toilets all have individual angle stops, but the shower does not.
Were you ever at the house?
No, ma'am.
No, so you were never at the house?
No, ma'am.
How many square feet is your house?
It's 2,500.
It's a substantial house. So you're telling me in a 2,500 square foot house, if you have a leak in the shower, you have to turn off all the water if you want to turn off the shower water?
Yes, ma'am. That's absolutely correct.
That's absolutely correct. Having not been there.
Yes, ma'am. I build houses.
No. I don't care what you build. You weren't in that house.
This has no shut-off, ma'am, other than the whole house. You have to shut the water to the house off to shut that off.
So now here's my question. Did you tell the plaintiff that she had two options, either to shut the water off in the whole house until you could get a part because there was still a leak, or you could leave it on, but you have to watch it because according to you, the water was substantial that was coming out. She said it was a trickle. You said, oh, no. It was a steady stream of water. And that was before you started messing with it. So my question to you is, did you tell her that those were her options? She's not a plumber. That you either had to turn off all the water in the house and you would return the next day with a part, or you could leave the water on, but it was still going to be leaking. Did you tell her that?
Yes. It would still be leaking.
No way.
It would still be leaking because it was leaking when I left.
No way, Mr. Shelton. No way did you tell her that. No way did you say to her, this shower is still going to be leaking because I can't shut the water off just to the bathroom. I have to shut off all the water in the house. If you're trying to sell me that story, I have a bridge I want to sell you because I don't believe it.
There's no way to isolate that valve?
I didn't ask you that.
When it comes to the shower...
You were never there.
Or the tub...
Just a second.
You can't turn it off individually.
You were never there. I have this question for you. How many bathrooms do you have in your house?
3.
When he left the first time and he shut the water off, did he indicate to you that you couldn't use the water anywhere in the house?
Yes. I believe he told me at first that he was going to shut off the water to the house.
Okay, so you knew. So you couldn't use any other of the toilets in the house?
No.
Okay, you may be getting better. When he left, did you use the bathroom? The answer is yes.
Yes.
So you knew that the water had been turned back on?
Oh, absolutely.
In the house. Just a minute. So you knew the water had been turned back on in the house, even though he didn't tell you I'm turning it back on, you knew. And you knew that he hadn't fixed the problem.
Correct.
So you knew that you better watch this, which is why you called your contractor to come and look at it.
Correct.
You're getting better, Mr. Foy. You're coming into a better place, you see? Things work themselves out. Now, you know that the water is still dripping. You know that there's still a leak.
Correct.
You know that if you use the water, that water is still going to be a steady stream coming out. You didn't get another plumber there until when?
The next morning.
Well, that's your contractor. You said he came the
No,
next
I
morning.
got a plumber there the next morning.
Okay, and they came, and did they fix the valve?
They had to open the wall to cap off the hot and cold water.
So it was a big job.
It was huge. I neglected to say it in the beginning, but when he took the shower valve off, he looked in the wall and he said, "It's dry in there, you're lucky." So that next morning when I walked into the master bedroom and I was walking in wet, I did call the Scotty boy.
Now tell me where you felt it when you walked into the master bedroom. Do you have wood floors there or carpet?
It's all wood. And it was right as I got to where the bathroom and the master bedroom meet. There's no door.
So it was outside that it was wet.
I thought my dog had an accident on the floor.
And prior to the 29th, it's not getting to look good for you again. Prior to the time, Mr. Shelton.
May I clarify? The room that she's talking about, the shower's here. Robbie's working in the shower where it's all tile.
You weren't there.
And we never went into her bedroom.
Yes, you did. You have to.
You can't tell me that because you weren't there. Is the bathroom adjacent to the bedroom?
So to get to the master bathroom, you have to walk into the master bedroom and make a left.
Okay. Now, Mr. Shelton, you recall saying to the plaintiff, when you looked in the wall, you're lucky it's dry in here?
I said it looks dry. I'm not next.
Just a second. Mr. Shelton, you wouldn't have said to her, it looks dry in here, I'm not an expert.
An expert on water
damage.
Say? Yeah, I didn't, you can't really see into that wall because it's tiled, right? You can't really look into the wall unless you open it, but there was no reason for me to open it.
Evidently, you're wrong. Either you were wrong that it was dry, or when you put things back together again, something didn't work.
Robbie shakes his head. Caption coming up.
After he touched it, it was no longer leaking in the shower. Now it was going through the wall. I'm just telling you, that's the time sequence, unless you believe in miracles.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Carla, Scotty, and Robbie.
Carla Sacco has accused plumbers Robbie Shelton and Scotty Foy of causing water damage to her home. Robbie and Scotty claimed the leak had been there for weeks.
Mr. Foy, you have a lot to say for someone who was never there.
Someone who's been a plumber for 40 years.
Just a second. I've been alive with houses for longer than you've been a plumber, right? And there are certain things just from being on the planet. This leak was first detected more than 2 weeks before your plumber got there, right? That's what she says. However, within that 2-week period, there was no water damage to the wood. The only time there was water, listen, you can shake your head all you like. This is the timeline.
We got cold because there was a leak, ma'am.
No, you got cold because there was a leak in the shower.
And according to her, it was leaking for 10 days.
Mr. Foy, what I'm telling you is he would never tell me that when he got there, he noticed anything that would have suggested to him that he best keep the water off in that house because there was water damage. He didn't notice that. He just took it apart, couldn't find a part, put it back together again, whichever way he put it back together again, and the next morning, there was a flood. Now, that's the time sequence, because she called you the next morning, couldn't get you at 8:30. I don't know whether she used a house phone, I don't know if she used a cell phone.
A cell phone.
Cell phone. So she would have a record of calling you at 8:30 the next morning because there was a problem. She felt water. So before your technician got there was no water coming up in her bedroom on the wood. And that had been water dripping, he says, a lot. She said it was a trickle for 18 days.
Into the shower, ma'am. It was dripping into the shower.
Until he touched it. After he touched it, it was no longer leaking in the shower. Now it was going through the wall. I'm just telling you, that's the time sequence, unless you believe in miracles, things that, just happen. Something had been going on for 18 days, and there was no incident of water damage in her bedroom. Your technician comes, doesn't fix the problem, but takes it apart, puts it back together again. The next day, voila, there's water damage on the wood, which has to be replaced. Now, either that could have happened by itself, because your technician said, it's not my job, I don't look behind the wall, but he did acknowledge saying to her, it looks dry in here. does acknowledge saying that. Now, if I had a plumber and the plumber said, I'm not the expert, I had a leak in my apartment with a leaky toilet. The floor started to go like this. Couldn't figure out where it came from. They came down, they pulled all the walls apart in the apartment. Water travels down. I said, well, if water travels down, why don't you go look at the apartment above me instead of pulling out the walls on the side? Well, if something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. Can you, Mr. Foy, and you were not there, could you give me another explanation of why? Because I believe her. This woman is not here because she is faking damage to her wood floors that resulted within that day. If he left at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the next day she called you at 8:30. So during that time period was sufficient water that came through her house to cause damage to her floors. Give me another explanation.
I contend that it was a leak that was there. She didn't notice it because, as she said, she didn't use that bathroom. She wasn't in that room. And
he was in that room.
I know, but what I'm saying is the water damage was there before he was there.
So your explanation is that you sent a technician there. Now it's not looking so good for you, Mr. Foy. Your explanation is your technician didn't notice sufficient leaking from that valve to say to her, you best turn the water off in the house and not use the water until I get back to fix it.
He wasn't looking in the bedroom, ma'am. He was in the shower. He saw the leak in the shower. And that's
Can I see pictures of the floor, please?
Can I say something?
Sure.
When I left, it was not leaking. It was leaking the same way it was leaking when I first got there.
So
out the front.
Well, just a second. That's a lot.
It was coming out.
According to you.
Well, I mean, what a lot to me is a little stream is a lot of water.
Listen, Mr. Shelton.
Plumber, so.
Listen, Mr. Shelton.
You know,
she said a trickle. You said no. It was a steady stream.
Well, yeah, stream.
That's steady stream. That's what you said, right? Can I see pictures of the floors, please? Between 4 o'clock and 8:30 in the morning.
Judy examines photos of damaged flooring.
Can I see the bill to fix it, please?
I also have the person that fixed it. He wrote what he did.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, like kind of itemizes how.
Would you show this, please, to the defendant?
Yes.
Judy hands the photos to Kevin, who brings them to Scotty. He reviews them. Judy examines an invoice.
Thank you.
Scotty hands the photos back to Kevin, who returns them to Judy.
So, Mr. Foy, I assume you have insurance. You should have used it because I think you're responsible for the damage to her floors. And I think that was done because your technician did not do an adequate job of protecting it between the time he found the leak and between the next day. Nothing else makes sense to me. 35-89, judgment for the plaintiff. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I don't really agree with it because it was already leaking before I got there and she admitted to it.
I'm just thankful this is over.
That is a wood floor. Water could have been underneath the wood floor and not showed itself.
You would think once they pull the floor up, there would be mold.
I have nightmares about leaks.
Got justice today, thank goodness.
So, you tell me that there are houses that you know where there is a master switch.
Yes.
That you have to turn off for the shower.
I know it can be expensive to have all the valves in your house be the individual shut-off valves. I do think it's safer, but honestly, not everyone has the luxury of being able to afford them.
Even if that's the case, you should give the homeowner who called you, say, listen, there is a leak here. I can shut off all the water until I return.
Filing of false police reports and harassment.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judy.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches.
Case number 2068, Automatis versus Albrecht.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Albrecht, I'm going to start with you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You are the current live-in boyfriend of the plaintiff's ex-wife?
Soon to be.
Of the plaintiff's wife.
Correct.
Mr. Adamas's complaint is that as a result of you making a call to the police, he was defamed when you said that he was trespassing. It was a false call to the police, and he wants to be compensated to the tune of $2,500. That's what the case is about. So in order to make this whole thing in context that I understand, how long have you been living with Mrs. Adamas?
Since June of 21.
How long do you know her?
Since January of 21.
Have you ever been married?
Yes, I have.
When and for how long?
Previously to April of this year, I was married for 15 years.
So you were married when you moved in with Mrs. Adamas?
Yeah.
Legally?
Legally.
Did you own your own home?
I did.
With your then wife?
Correct.
Did she stay in the house?
She did.
Does she have a boyfriend?
Yes, she does.
Do you like him?
No, I do not.
Does he live in the house?
Not at this time.
Did he ever?
Yes, he did.
And you didn't like it?
No, I did not.
Judy grins.
So I want you to understand that there is maybe a reason why the plaintiff resents you living in a house that he owns with his still wife and you're living there. Do you understand?
I do.
Because you sort of have the same situation. You're kindred spirits. Just a minute. Actually, you're kindred spirits.
Except my 15-year-old son also lives with this young man.
So who cares?
Oh.
Well, that's all right. But you understand why he might be annoyed.
I do, but...
Okay. So now, understanding all that, I want you to tell me, because I'm not totally sympathetic with you, sir, because if you and your wife are divorcing, you're entitled to move on with your life, and so is she entitled to move on with your life. Where do you live? You live in an apartment?
I live in a condominium.
Okay. How long have you lived in the condo?
I've lived when we separated March of 2021.
And who do you live with?
I currently live with my...
No. Who do you live with is the question.
My older son.
And how old is he?
19.
And how many bedrooms are in the condo?
2.
And what about you? Have a girlfriend?
Yes, I do.
Ever stay over?
My house? No.
Do you ever stay at her house?
No.
Does she live with her children?
Yes.
And is she divorced?
Yes.
And she stayed in the house?
Yes.
You see how all these things go? It's just, as the world turns, it's just what happens. Been there. Understand it all. Can either make it hard or difficult. Who pays the mortgage on the house?
Paid off.
Okay. So you have one teenage child, your wife has the other.
Yes.
And how close is the judgment to divorce to being finalized?
Not close.
Not close. Is that for financial reasons or custody reasons?
Financial.
Had to do with the house?
Yes.
Okay. How much is the house? I'm just fleshing this out.
Speculating.
Only because I'm a little bit of a yenta. Behind this purple robe is a little bit of a...
You know, with the housing market being a CPA, you know, it's hard to say, you have to do, but I would say somewhere...
Why don't you give Sarah the address of the house, and we'll tell you what this estimate is.
California.
While she's looking that up, tell me when you and your wife purchased it.
2006, August of 2006.
And during the course of the marriage, were you employed all the time?
100%.
And what about your wife?
100%.
So you were both employed and both contributed to the house. Fair statement?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The estimate is $552,000.
And just for my own curiosity, what's the rub about the house?
The rub
Come on, it's simple.
The rub about the house is she's now went in and spent an ungodly amount of money on fixer-upper after I moved out and went into a massive amount of debt. The house was fully paid off, and she's now in massive debt. She's put in fixer-upper.
No, don't look at her.
Okay, that's
look
what
at me.
Okay.
So she's fixed up the house after you moved out.
Correct.
And?
It's not a problem.
Just a second. So what's the problem?
There is no problem with the house. Meaning that, you know, we're still debating who's actually going to end up with the house. We haven't decided.
Well, you know, whoever wants to be in the house buys the other one out.
Exactly.
For $260,000.
Correct.
Okay? It would seem to me that would be easy.
I think so.
Okay. Now that I've satisfied the yenta in me, I'm getting back to the case. All right. You called the police. This incident, according to what I read, Mr. Adamas, happened on November 5th.
Correct.
You went to the house to pick up your son.
Correct.
Okay. Was that a meeting that had been arranged before?
I have visitation every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks when?
Every other weekend.
Well, so was this a weekend?
Yes, that was one where I was going to go pick him up.
Okay. Had you spoken to him?
Yes.
And so he was expecting you to come at a certain time?
Absolutely.
What time?
Approximately there, we'd arranged about 7:15, that 7:15, 7:30 that night.
Okay. And you had visitation fixed by the court, and you had been enjoying that with your son for a period of time?
Correct.
Okay, what happened when you got there at 7:15?
Well, on that particular visit, my wife had taken his key to the house, and I had...
No. I told you, don't look at her.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
I'm getting sympathetic with her. I just want you to know that.
Okay.
7:15, you went to pick up your son, and you were annoyed because your wife had taken your son's key away from him.
Correct.
And you thought your son should have his key because he was 15.
Yes.
And?
So at that particular time, I
No, don't look down.
Okay, look at me. I went into the house. I'd never been in that house since I moved out, and so I wanted...
How did you get into the house?
The door was open.
Okay, the door isn't wide open. You mean it was unlocked?
Unlocked.
Okay, so let's not say the door was open.
Okay,
the door was unlocked.
Correct.
Door was unlocked. You don't live there anymore. You live in a condo.
Correct.
Okay, did you ring the bell?
No.
Knock at the door?
Yes.
But there's a bell.
Answered.
There's a bell.
There was a bell.
There's a bell.
Yes.
Didn't ring the bell. Open the door. Now, open the door.
Yes.
Your house, I own half of it. I'm going to ask my wife a question.
Yes.
Keep going.
Walked into the house. At that particular time, she is sitting there with my son. At that particular time, I asked her to get a copy of the key, and we became into an argument. She didn't want me to have a copy of the key. And I tried to explain to her, without a copy of the key, he can't get in the house. If I drop him off at odd hours, then you don't have to be home. So then she got upset. At that point, then I never met Mr. Albrecht before this time. He comes storming down the stairs. Mr. Albrecht I think Mr. Albrecht's coming to beat me up. He is storming down the stairs. I have since learned that Mr. Albrecht...
Just stop.
Okay.
Just pay careful attention to me. So far, you're in the wrong.
Okay.
Let me just tell you.
Okay.
So far, from a legal perspective...
Right.
...and a common sense perspective...
Okay.
...you're in the wrong. I'll explain why in a second.
So I walk into that house.
We got past that.
Okay.
We got past that. So now you want a copy of the key, and she says no. I don't care if you want to give it to your parakeet.
Okay.
You're not entitled to a copy of the key.
Okay.
Let's start right there.
Okay.
And let's start with my first point is if you're going there to pick up your son for a prearranged visit,
yes,
you don't walk into the house. You have a 15-year-old son. A 15-year-old son has a phone.
I tried to call him, yes.
Oh, you tried to call him. What happened?
He said he was there, he said...
Be very careful what you say to me.
Okay, he was
called your son.
And I called my son, be ready to go. He said, okay, I'm ready to go.
That was at about 7 o'clock?
Yes, approximately.
What do you mean, yes, approximately?
Yeah, I was probably on my way to pick him up. And so when I come up there, I call him on the phone.
Okay, he's ready to go.
Yes, are you ready to go?
Okay, so you walked in.
Okay.
You had no right to enter the house.
Did not know that.
Well, you had no right to enter the house. You knew that your wife changed the locks.
I did not know at that time she had changed the lock because the door was open. I had not been
No. Listen to me. You went there because... Mr. Adonis, you have to be a two-process thinker, sir, before you give me a lot of baloney.
Frank grins. Caption, coming up.
You knew that your old key didn't open the house. Otherwise, you would have said, your mother took away your key. I'll make you another key from my copy.
True.
True, of course it's true. So, you know.
And later today.
I wasn't allowed to live with my dad and stepmom because they moved into a 55 and over neighborhood.
When?
They...
If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Frank and Willie.
Frank Automitis claims his wife's boyfriend, Willie Albrecht, wrongfully called the police while visiting his own house.
Okay, if you needed a copy of the key to a house that you partially own,
yes,
you would have had a key to the house.
Correct.
You didn't need a copy to make because you would have had one.
Okay.
So you knew that your old key didn't open the house. Otherwise, you would have said, your mother took away your key. I'll make you another key from my copy.
True.
True, of course it's true. So, you know, so he called the police and he said you were trespassing.
No, he didn't say that at all.
What did he say?
He said he told me I was trespassing. Then he called on the phone, and when he's on the phone with the police department, he is telling them that I am now committing domestic violence. Now, that is a very serious charge. I mean, okay, we can debate about my access to the house, but when you call the police and say that I'm committing domestic violence, which is a crime in the state of California, that's a game changer. So
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Adonis. When you walked into the house and you saw your wife and your son, I want to know, when you walked in uninvited,
True.
your first words were, "I want a copy of the key." That's what you said. You said, "I want a copy of the key." Would you read that back to me, please, Whitney?
I'll go with that.
At that particular time, I asked her to get a copy of the key, and we became into an argument.
So now you're in an argument, and you're a trespasser. Your case is dismissed. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Frank, then Willie.
Very, very shocking.
She's absolutely correct, as she usually is.
I had no idea this was going to blow up into World War III.
Because he's all about winning. He didn't get his way. He was throwing a temper tantrum.
I feel that he's just trying to do whatever he can to keep me out of the picture.
He lives by his own rules.
He just simply wants me out of the way so he could take over.
Let the courts decide.
Judy and Sarah.
It's always so unfortunate when people divorce. I mean, the story is this. I could have written the script without even listening to the people. But they have two teenage boys, 15, 19 years old. One's chosen to live with the father, one's chosen to live with the mother. Clearly, the son said to him, "Mom took away my key." She clearly took away his key for a reason. I didn't even want to get into what the reason was, but clearly she took away the key for a reason. Otherwise, she doesn't look like an unreasonable person. Her boyfriend doesn't look like an unreasonable guy. And he was flexing his muscles. And the fight is over the house, because I gather that's the only real asset they have. Yeah. Anyway, unfortunate when people don't realize that they have to love their children more than they hate each other.
So true.
Case 2069, Hastings versus Kammer. All parties, please step forward.
Ryan Hastings is suing his former roommates, Peyton Kammer, for security deposits, personal belongings, and filing a false restraining order.
Mr. Hastings, you and the defendant were roommates? I'm not quite understanding.
Yes, correct.
Clearly, whether you were roommates or in a relationship. What was it?
It was just roommates.
When did you start to be roommates?
In September of 2020.
Did you know each other before?
Yes.
How?
We were just friends that met at a party and hung out often.
Starting when?
That was in December of 2019.
And what made you decide to room together?
We were both looking for a place to live, so since we both needed that, we found this apartment together.
2 bedrooms?
Correct.
And you moved in with animals,
Correct.
I understand from the complaint.
Correct.
Cats?
Yes.
How many?
I had 2.
I had 2.
I didn't ask you anything yet. You had 2. And Miss Kammer had 2. Any other animals?
No.
So you started to live together during COVID.
Correct.
Were you working?
Yes.
Was Miss Kammer working?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
It was $13.65.
And you each paid half?
Correct.
So far, correct? Was everything okay in 2020? September, October, November, December?
As far as rent?
No, as far as the living arrangement.
Oh, in 2020, yeah, we just had many squabbles, but overall, we were just fine.
I'm going to ask you the same question. In 2020, everything okay?
No.
What happened in 2020?
It was emotional warfare since I moved in with him. There was arguments with everything, even simple things like cleaning the dishes, just nonstop. I was terrified of him living with him. I couldn't bring anything up without it being an argument.
Okay, so prior to moving in with Mr. Hastings, where did you live?
With my parents.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Is this the first time you had an apartment?
Yes.
And how far away were your parents from this apartment?
Probably like 10 minutes.
If you were terrified, you should have moved home.
I wasn't allowed to.
You weren't allowed to because?
Because I wasn't allowed to live with my dad and stepmom because they moved into a 55 and over neighborhood.
When?
They...
If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory.
They moved in a little after I moved into my apartment. I moved into my apartment to prepare for them moving out.
I just don't want to hear drama. If you had fights over who's going to clean the dishes, I don't want to hear terrified, unless you're terrified. And if you're terrified and you're 21 years old, you go back to where you came from, to your parents' house. If you're terrified, may not have liked it, but that's just kid drama. So, squabbles in 2020. Your lawsuit says that she disposed of your belongings. She filed a restraining order.
Yes.
As a result of the restraining order, you were evicted from the apartment.
Yes.
It was a false restraining order. You hired a lawyer to appeal the finding of the judge.
Yes.
That you had harassed her because this restraining order was based on harassment.
Yes.
May I see a copy of it, please?
I have a copy of the restraining order.
Of the order or what it was based on?
It said what it has the whole thing. It says what it was based on.
Yeah, I see what she has. It doesn't look like it was what it was based on. You do a write-up of what it was based on.
Judy reviews a document.
On the front page, in a little box, it has a little description of what happened.
Okay, so the judge who heard this case, and I'm assuming everything in this write-up is true. On the above date, which was the 7th of September 2021, on the above date and time, defendant and the plaintiff engaged in a verbal argument over household chores. The defendant then made comments to the plaintiff that he would go crazy on her and raised his fist. The defendant stated this multiple times and started shaking in anger, causing the plaintiff to be in fear for her life. And you had a hearing on this?
Yes.
You had a hearing on this. You told this to a judge?
Yes.
Yes.
I want you to tell me what you told the judge, or did you tell the judge anything?
I told the judge that I was raising my voice, but I was standing a good amount of distance away from her at the time, and that I was shaking because I wasn't being listened to, and that was it. There was no physical interaction there, only verbal interaction.
Caption coming up.
Did the judge say to you, how would you describe shaking in anger because you weren't being listened to?
I was shaking just because I was angry. I was just trying to keep my composure.
Well, that would frighten me.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Ryan and Peyton.
Ryan Hastings claims his former roommate, Peyton Kammer, owes for a security deposit and personal belongings. Peyton is countersuing for rent and emotional distress.
Now, tell me, did the judge say to you, how would you describe shaking in anger because you weren't being listened to?
Can you repeat that question?
I don't know how you were shaking. You mean you...
I was shaking as in like, I was shaking just because I was angry. I wasn't being listened to. I was trying to keep my composure. So I was just shaking.
Well, that would frighten me. Actually, I don't know whether I'd put you out of your house, but that would frighten me. Mr. Hastings, where are you living now?
I just moved into a new apartment.
With whom?
Myself.
Better?
Yes, and my cats.
Perfect. Yourself and your cats. Great. Now, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Hastings, if that happened to me with a man who was larger than I was, that might frighten me if he appeared out of control. So I'm dismissing that part of your complaint, which seeks damages for a false restraining order.
Okay.
What you actually just testified to me, and I took everything that she said in her complaint against you. I didn't even have to ask her. I wanted to know what you told the judge.
Of course.
Then it was a reasonable issuing of a protective order, just to make sure that it appeared to me what you were testifying to is that she couldn't tell the difference whether you were composing yourself or whether you were out of control. Okay, so it was...
May I interject and just say that the restraining order was repealed and remanded, saying that the court did not find sufficient evidence to impose the order. And
whether it was or not, I don't care what... I'm not sitting as an appellate court.
Okay.
I'm sitting as a trier of fact for the first time in your civil action. And what you told me, in my judgment, was sufficient for a judge to say, you know, I don't want to preside over an assault case or a homicide case. This guy says he was shaking. She says he was shaking in anger. You say I was shaking to try to maintain my composure. Well, I'm not going to worry about them. Let him go find someplace else to live, which is what he did. So I think that that's reasonable. Money owed for return of security deposit. Now, he was put out of the apartment. He put in security deposit.
Correct.
And he was put out of the apartment. How much security deposit did he put in?
$682.
Are you still living in the apartment?
I am.
Okay. When he moved out of the apartment as a result of this restraining order, was there any damage in the apartment that he caused?
No.
Then you have to give him back his $682, because any damage that would have resulted since he moved out would be your damage, okay? That's fair enough. $682, that's your security deposit, sir. Return of belongings. Okay, so when you were told that you had to vacate the apartment, tell me what belongings you left in the apartment which you think she still has, which belong to you.
I do not believe she has anything of mine left in that apartment.
Well, what do you think she owes you for?
I am seeking the money for those items because they were thrown away.
What items?
So I had a bed.
Just a second. Yeah. You had a bed and there was a major flea problem in the apartment as a result of your cats.
Correct.
Okay, she threw away the bed. What else?
Okay, there was a Nintendo Switch.
Do you know what that is?
Nintendo Switch? I never found that. I believe he took that the night with him.
Okay, she didn't have it. She didn't throw it away. What else?
I also had a hookah that was in there.
What, a hookah?
Yeah.
Do you have his hookah?
No.
Go. What's next? Okay, if you have to think about it that hard.
I'm sorry.
Sir, we're finished. She owes you back your security deposit. Okay. That's $682. You have a counterclaim. Most of it is nonsense. You counterclaim for emotional distress. Forget that. Only one emotionally distressed usually in this room is me. Money owed for the month's rent, for a final month's rent. What is that?
He didn't pay the month of September. He was late on it.
The month of September?
But that would have been the $682.
Was he there in September?
September 1st would have been the day that the money was due.
No, when did he vacate the apartment as a result of your restraining order?
September 7th, when the night of the mistake, but he was late on rent often.
$682, that's what he gets.
Yes.
As he gets a security deposit back. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Peyton, then Ryan.
I don't really disagree with anything. Everything went perfectly the way I would have hoped it went.
I'm glad I got my security deposit back, but I could have definitely been compensated for the items that I lost.
I mean, he got a little money out of it, but way less than he thought he would. It's a good day.
Sometimes I can get anxious, but I would not hurt anybody physically.
I hope he gets some help.
Me and my cats are the best trio.
Judy and Sarah.
You know, I remember from a very early period in my life when I started college that I wasn't really good at having a roommate.
I think you must have passed that on to me.
I did, especially one that you don't love. You know, it's hard enough to live with somebody that you love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, get irritated. You know, she said they fought over dishes and not doing the dishes. Well, you know, you've lived with us, so, you know, I have that argument all the time. But I love him.
Yeah.
It's very hard to deal with somebody schmutz that you don't love.
Got to be careful and pick someone you really think and cross your fingers and toes.
Actually, Sarah, I don't think you should pick anybody. I think that what you should do, if you can, is live in a shoebox by yourself, if that's all you can afford. Yeah. You know how many roommate cases we've done just in the last couple of years?
All with stress and
For unpaid loans.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judge Judy.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches.
Hello, Judge. Case 2082, Smoody versus McDonald.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. and Mrs. Smoody, the defendant used to be married to your daughter.
Yes, Your Honor.
And according to what I've read, they were married for about 5 years.
Yes.
The thrust of your claim is that he owes for a couple of things, for rent and the balance of a truck. That's your lawsuit against him. I'd like to know, do you know the date of their marriage?
3/16/2011.
And your ex-wife's first name?
Jacqueline.
And when did you and your former wife separate?
In 2020.
And you had 2 children. How old are they now?
They are 5 and 8.
And who has custody of the children?
Dalton has physical, and they have joint custody.
Just a second. So he has custody of the 2 younger children?
Yes.
That's a yes. How long have you had custody of the 2 children?
Since July of last year.
At some point during the marriage, there was a truck purchased.
Yes.
Who purchased the truck?
Dalton purchased the truck. I co-signed for it.
And when was it purchased? Month and year?
June of 2017.
Was that the only car that they had?
Yes.
So that was a family car?
Yes.
And in 2017, was your daughter working?
Yes.
So both parents worked. And both parents, I assume, pooled their money and I assume made car payments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Is that correct? Both. And then they separated in 2020, and at that time, the children came to live with you.
Correct.
And you took the truck.
Yes.
By agreement with your now ex-wife.
Yes.
In 2020, who made the car payments?
My husband did.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I made all of the car payments on that vehicle, all of them, from the time it was purchased until we paid it off.
Okay, so what you're telling me is from 2017, you made all the car payments.
That's correct.
Did your daughter and son-in-law make any of those payments?
Not directly, but they paid toward the balance of the money that they were.
You paid for the truck.
That's correct.
Since 2017, since they
correct.
were married.
Yes.
With no reimbursement.
I took payments out of my daughter's check.
Just be very, very careful with me, sir.
Yeah.
I want you to be very careful with me. I read that, what we call in Yiddish, Bubameises in here, that you took money out of your daughter's check. Bubameises, it means grandma's tale. It means it's not true. It means it doesn't sound right to me. I read it in here. Don't try to repeat it here because that won't be good for you. Okay, I'm going to believe you if you show me copies of her checks that you made to her with withdrawals from money she owed you. That's all I want to see. Do you have that?
I do not.
Not, of course not. Now, he has the truck, and this was clearly either a gift or a marital debt. Either one of those two things. It's either a gift or a marital debt. It was a family car that was used by your daughter, her husband, the grandchildren, with, according to you, no reimbursement, according to you, except this ridiculous reimbursement from your daughter's check, which I don't believe, so I'm not even going into it, with no reimbursement 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And when your daughter and the defendant separated in 2020, according to him and according to you, he took the truck and the children. And that was with her consent or not?
Yes, it was.
With her consent. Is that so far right? That's what you're telling me.
It's accurate.
Right. Did you intervene in the divorce proceeding and say that there is money owed, marital debt owed, and part of the marital debt is this loan on the truck?
No.
No. The answer is no, you did not. It would also be fair to say that you don't know how much, according to you, she paid for the truck.
I do, Your Honor. I have that ledger that I have. I would go to her each week and say, Jacqueline, how much can I take toward the loan? And that's how much I would take off each week.
All you have to do, sir, is show me. Otherwise, this is a whole bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
It's a marital debt. You did not intervene in the divorce proceedings and say, listen, this is a debt that's still outstanding, whatever it is, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. You didn't do that. Now, the only thing that you can say to me with regard to this truck business is if you had, had an agreement with the defendant in 2017 to pay the truck. And be very careful, because what you've told me is he didn't make any payments to you from 2017 ever.
He made some payments.
Just a second. Interesting. Show me where he made payments. Did you give him a receipt for payments?
No, this is a small town, and
It's not a small town, it's a family, sir. It's not a small...
I do have the ledger.
I'm not interested in the ledger you created. It's self-serving and therefore inadmissible and created for the purpose solely of this litigation and not created at the same time that the event took place. I might even cut you a little slack if you had a ledger, a book with entries in it at different times from 2017 in different ink, with a day, how much was paid back on the loan. I guarantee you do not have that. You have a very nice piece of white paper that you created for me. Is that correct? That is correct.
That is accurate.
Okay, so I'm not interested in your ledger. That's not a ledger. That's a document prepared for the purposes of litigation. So I want you to tell me what conversation you had and when with Mr. McDonald about paying for the truck.
Caption, coming up.
They bought this boat from you.
Accurate.
And how much did you sell it to them for?
$2,500.
Did they pay you for it?
No, part of that was put on the ledger, and part of it was cash.
You know I'm not buying your whole story.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Herman, Tina, and Dalton.
Herman and Tina Smoody claim their former son-in-law, Dalton McDonald, owes for unpaid loans.
Now, I want you to tell me what conversation you had and when with Mr. McDonald about paying for the truck.
That was from the very beginning, because I was paying all their bills.
Just a sec. I don't care whether you were paying their bills. I understand you were paying all their bills because they came to live with you for a brief period of time because they were evicted for whatever reason, and that was sometime in 2016. Okay. So I understand that you were paying their bills. Well, sometimes that's what parents do. They pay their bills.
We were paying their bills because they had no checking account.
That doesn't matter to me. I want to know your conversations with, where did it take place? Because you're not suing your daughter, you're suing him.
The conversation was when we rented the farm for them, which I know is not with the truck, but the landlord would not let them rent from them because they had terrible credit.
We'll get to the rent later. Stick with the truck. Don't talk to him when I'm asking him questions.
Well, the truck was the same thing. We put that on the ledger then, or on the running total, and they agreed. They both agreed that they were going to pay us off.
Okay.
He came over on Labor Day weekend, and I showed him the ledger, which he saw all the time.
No. Don't tell me what he saw. Don't tell me what he saw. If what you're saying is you showed him the ledger when he came over with the boys,
yes,
and he was going back to Minnesota.
Right.
And he brought the boys to see you to say goodbye?
Correct.
Okay, so far, it's very nice. You have a reasonable relationship with him, and certainly your daughter was clearly overwhelmed because courts do not usually split up children, so they must have felt that the children's best interest would be served if they remained with their father. Clearly what happened, the father came over to you to let you say goodbye to the children, and when he came over to let you say goodbye to the children, let me understand what you're saying to me. What you said to him was, not thank you for taking over this responsibility. Your daughter had more children than she could take care of, physically or financially, right? Clearly.
Yes.
Clearly. So what you want me to believe that two nice people who took in their daughter with her two kids and a husband and bought a truck and made arrangements for them to have some place to live, that these two nice people, when he came over, because your daughter couldn't take care of her children, and he brought them to say goodbye, you said, it's very nice. I want you to take a look at this ledger and see how much money you owe me. That's what you're asking me to believe, right? I'm going to let you live with that fantasy that I believe that.
And so I did give him the balance of what he owed me on the rent.
No.
And on the truck.
Nice.
And he looked me in the eye, he shook my hand and said, Jerry, I promise I'm not going to screw you on this. I'm going to make those payments.
Make payments for what?
On the rent and on the truck.
Okay. Did you have that conversation with him?
No, I did not, Your Honor. The conversation was when I came up there the last time, Jerry was trying to sell his fishing boat, so I posted it on Facebook, and I sold it for him.
In what month and year?
That would have been September of 2020. After selling the boat, he gave me $1,200 for helping him.
How much did he sell the boat for?
It was $4,700.
So that was after you'd already moved?
Correct.
With the children?
Yep.
Okay. He helped you sell the boat for $4,700? Just answer my question.
No.
Did you give him $1,200?
No. He bought that boat from me a year prior to that. He had it.
So they bought this boat from you?
Accurate.
When?
That would have been in the spring of 2019.
And how much did you sell it to them for?
$2,500.
Did they pay you for it?
No, part of that was put on the ledger, and part of it was cash.
You know, I'm not buying your whole story. I'm not buying your whole story because what
Your Honor, I'm telling you the honest to God truth.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that I would have sold people who had no credit, who couldn't buy themselves a truck, so you had to co-sign for the only means of transportation that they had, who couldn't pay for their rent, who couldn't pay their bills because of their bad credit. I don't believe this whole scenario about selling them a leisure boat, for $2,500. Is mind-boggling that you would think that an intelligent person like me would accept that. Okay, forget the truck. You have the truck now.
Yes.
Okay. You haven't finished your story with me, so sold the boat, and he gave you $1,200.
Correct. I gave him the $1,200 back, which made us even on the truck payment, and he gave me the title. Tina signed it, and then I brought it back to Minnesota and put it in my name.
Okay. Who signed it?
Tina signed it.
My name was on it as well.
Your name?
Yes.
As joint owners with him?
Yep.
Co-sign it.
Oh, interesting. In what month did Mrs. Smoody?
Yes.
Sign over the car to you?
The same day that I gave Jerry the $1,200, that would have been in September.
Now, do you remember the $1,200?
No, it was $1,000 that he paid toward the loan when he sold when I sold the boat for him.
Okay.
And it was his boat that I sold for him.
Okay. You did not create this as a marital debt. It absolutely was a marital debt. So I'm dismissing that portion of your claim that deals with the truck. Now, let's deal with the rent. The rent that you're talking about was rent in what property?
The farmhouse that they rented.
From when to when?
2016, November 2020.
And over the years that they lived there as a couple.
Yes.
The rent was paid to a landlord.
Correct.
By you.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
And they, your daughter and her husband, would give you cash, checks, or whatever to cover the rent.
Yep.
Yes.
And how much did they give you to cover the rent?
When we started out, rent was $800, and later on, he raised it to $900. We never made it a set amount each week. They gave us what they could. And we've done this before in the past, and they've always paid us back.
Well, then you should have sued them and listed all of this as a marital debt in the process of their divorce. So it could all have been...
We're handling Jacqueline in another way.
You what?
We're handling Jacqueline alone.
I don't understand what that means.
Well, you're saying it was marital.
Just a second. Does that mean that you've already served your daughter with a summons?
Not yet, no.
Of course not. Of course not. And you did know when they were divorcing. Yeah. You did know when they were divorcing. I'm not buying anything of this lawsuit, most of which, at least the rent part, is totally stale. I'm just curious, Mr. and Mrs. Smoody, somebody wants to answer this question for me. Mr. McDonald has custody of your two young grandsons, who I assume that you were close to because they lived with you in your house. And you seem like...
live with us. The two boys came back to live with us.
From when to when?
December of 2021 until July of 2022. 6 months we had them.
Just a second, 2022. Was there a court proceeding?
No.
But then in July, they went back with their father.
That's accurate.
And they've been with their father since?
Yes.
Okay, so the boys lived with you for 6, 7 months.
Right.
Was that an acrimonious transfer?
Caption coming up.
That's what you meant when you said, any employer that has gone through all that paperwork and red tape, as I have, will do anything to avoid it. The anything is firing the employee.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Herman, Tina, and Dalton.
Herman and Tina Smoody are accusing their former son-in-law, Dalton McDonald, of refusing to pay back loans.
Was that an acrimonious transfer, or was it something that you both...
What happened there was he called my husband to see if
No, don't tell me what he said to your husband.
Okay,
I will tell you then. He called me in December and asked me if I would please take the two boys. I told him, I will take them, Dalton, if you start making regular payments.
Oh, well, we're out of the money business now, sir. What you're saying is from 2017, when the children were in his custody, your daughter may have been there, but they were in joint custody, and then he maintained custody of the children, and during the time he maintained custody of the children, there was no question whatsoever that he was not paying you back money. He did not make any payments to you. Occasional here and there, we don't keep records. All of a sudden, now you have the boys with you. And then in July, he comes back and he takes the boys back. All I asked you was whether that was an acrimonious, which is an unpleasant, or a harmonious transfer of the children. Mr. Smoody was in July.
In July, it was acrimonious because at that point, he'd gotten a restraining order against me.
Against you?
Against me while we had the children. Because I sent him a letter saying that I wanted payment, and he went and got a restraining order against me because they took that as a threat.
I'd like to see the letter, please, Kevin.
Herman hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
And this is what needs to happen moving forward.
That's correct.
You need to mail me $200 on the 1st of every month and $200 on the 15th, starting March 1st, 2022. If I do not get these payments on time, the following will happen, which is you know, you could say, I'm going to sue you, right? I'm going to sue you, but that's not what you say. You say, I will go to your boss and talk to them about garnishing your wages. Any employer that has gone through all the paperwork and red tape as I have will do anything to avoid it. So that's a threat. What you're saying is, I'm going to call your boss and tell him that I'm going to sue you, and then your boss is going to have to go through all the red tape of what it means to have a garnish on your salary. You have to go through accounting, and they have to deduct it. And no boss wants to do that, which is in effect say, so either you pay me or your boss is going to fire you. That's what you meant when you said, any employer that has gone through all that paperwork and red tape, as I have, will do anything to avoid it. The anything is firing the employee. The only thing that
you can legally fire somebody.
Just a second. Whether you can legally fire them or not, that's what you were threatening. That's what that said. So we got an order of protection against you.
Correct.
And?
Then I didn't fight it because I didn't anticipate having any conversations or contact with him.
When you wrote this letter,
yes,
you had the boys.
Yes.
Right. Not before.
No.
Not before. And he had had the boys for some time alone.
3 months.
He had had the boys for some time alone. Okay, let's go back to my original question, which was, when the boys went back to their father, was it acrimonious or harmonious?
It was not good.
Well, so tell me your version of what happened.
The reason it was acrimonious is because he knew very well that once we got him, we put him on a strict schedule. 8 o'clock, brush your teeth, 8:15, pajamas, 8:30, bed.
Where was your daughter living at this time?
With us.
Yeah, just to say, if you're going to interrupt him because you want to get it out,
I'm sorry,
that's not going to be good for you.
She had a room at our house.
Just a second. So your daughter was living with you. So what you're telling me was your daughter was in the wind someplace.
Accurate.
Okay. You know, you had her for a long time. He only had her for 5 years. And I can understand the sadness if your daughter is in the wind and not being responsible, sir. But that doesn't mean he has to shoulder all the burden. Right now, he's shouldering all the burden of supporting the 2 children, which I assume you're doing. They're living with you. And so are you working?
Yes, I am.
And he's working. Your daughter is not.
She's working 2 jobs.
She always has.
If she's working 2 jobs, why was she in a room?
She wasn't renting. She was living there free.
Okay. So now let's get back to this acrimonious transfer by the children back in July.
Dalton called me, or called the kids.
Okay, so he called the children.
After bedtime.
Okay.
Called my wife's phone 4 times. Ring, 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 ring. And she wouldn't answer because kids were in bed. And then he called my phone twice. The second time, I have an old flip phone. I flipped it, walked in, because now I hear the boys are awake. I let them talk to the boys. And then I took the phone back, and I said some naughty things to him and hung it up.
What did you say naughty things to him for?
Because I was very angry at him. Can I use some swear words that I used when I told him?
No, I assume you used some terrible words.
Yeah,
but
I just told him, don't call me anymore.
Is there any reason that you discussed with your wife why she didn't answer the phone?
Because the boys were already in bed. He had done that before.
You already told me that you heard the boys, so you took the phone into his room.
After the phone calls, they woke up.
Is what you're telling me that the first time that he tried to talk to the boys, that you or your wife didn't answer the phone?
I think it probably happened once or twice prior, and then we told him, don't do it anymore.
Okay, fine.
And this time we were fed up.
Fine. So that's when he said, I'm coming to take the boys.
No.
Well, when did he say he was coming to take the boys?
Not until July. Jacqueline told us that Dalton was going to be taking the kids once they got out of school.
Okay, I'm going to take the pain out of this case, and I'm going to do it relatively quickly. I think, Mr. and Mrs. Smoody, that this lawsuit was very ill-advised. The defendant doesn't owe you any money. He doesn't owe you any money because if there was money owed, it was a marital debt, and it should have been taken up at the time of the divorce, listed as a marital debt, and then it could have been fixed by the judge who approved the divorce how much and by whom is owed money. You chose not to do that. It was only after a very acrimonious set of circumstances, roughly 5.5 years later, after this truck was purchased, that you chose to exercise any prerogatives with regard to a debt, except this letter, which threatens to go to his boss to get him fired if you don't stop making payments, and that was only after the 2 children came to live with you and were sort of overwhelmed. You have to understand, Mr. McDonald, who I think probably is trying, he's got the 2 boys. It got very complicated, but it's not a lawsuit, and I would make nice with him. He's got 2 children that you probably want to have some connection with, and this lawsuit certainly doesn't help that. Well, anyway, for all the reasons that I've stated, your lawsuit's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Herman.
He owes us that money. He admitted he owed us the money.
I think the judge was absolutely correct.
He promised he was going to pay us the money back.
I don't owe Jerry any money.
Kids are irresponsible, have no sense of honor, duty, respect, responsibility, nothing.
Really should be a family thing, and maybe one day it can go back to it.
This was a great case that explains why a lot of cases in civil court have a statute of limitations before you can bring a certain kind of case, because here it was hard for us to understand why they would not have requested that money back earlier. So when you ask for it now, years down the line where so much has happened, court's not so likely to.
Joseph's 15-year-old son hit Carrie's vehicle.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judge Judy enters.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches.
Hello, Judge.
Good morning.
Case 2138, Cargill versus Simonet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judy turns to Carrie.
Ms. Cargill, you and the defendant's son had an accident while you were driving your car, and Mr. Simonet's son was driving his electric scooter.
It was like a skateboard, a one-wheel skateboard.
Judy gestures at a young man who rises.
Tell me your name.
Jacob Simonet.
Describe this vehicle that you were riding on.
It's got 2 spaces for your feet. Has one in the back, one in the front.
Now try to look at me. I'm trying to see you.
Oh.
Trying
There's
to
one in the
go
back,
like this.
one in the front, and then there's a big wheel in the center. And you put your feet on either side, and then it balances, and you ride it kind of like a skateboard.
Oh, I actually
had a
have
feeling you
picture
might
of
need it.
myself riding on one of those for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We bought it for one of my grandchildren years ago, but it's motorized.
Yes.
It has a motor.
It's electric.
And how fast does it go?
Tops out at about 17 miles an hour.
17.
Yes.
That's pretty fast. Are you required to drive that on the street where pedestrians walk or where cars ride?
On the sidewalk with pedestrians.
Sidewalk.
Yes.
Do you drive it on the sidewalk?
Yes, I do.
Do you ever drive it in the street?
I do not.
Now you're going to tell me what happened on the date of this incident, which was August 17th.
This year, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was going south after work, and I was going to crossing through the intersection. I had the green light.
Is there a chart?
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I was crossing the intersection.
You're the blue car.
I'm the blue car. And I had the green, it was going, and Jacob had cut through on the red into the green and slammed into the side of my car. He had cut through the intersection.
So he was in the street where the cars travel?
Yes.
Not on the sidewalk?
Right. He was not in the walkway.
Okay. Jacob, I want you to walk up to that sign and show me where you were when you and the plaintiff collided.
I was about right here.
You were in a crosswalk?
Yeah, I was in the crosswalk coming through and about
Okay,
right.
is that what, Jacob, is that what the police report is going to indicate? That you were in the crosswalk?
I don't know.
Well, I assume that there is a police report. Is that correct? Police report's going to tell me where the debris was, I assume. The debris is either going to be in a crosswalk or it's going to be in the street. Where do you think it's going to be?
Some of it was in the street.
Show me the street that you're talking about.
About like right
No,
here.
put your finger on it. Don't go around where it's
About right here.
right there. That would be in the middle, right? That would be in the middle of the street where the cars travel, not in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Judy turns to Joseph.
It's easy.
Sure.
How old is he?
15.
15. I've had a whole bunch of those who are 15. You know when they're telling a fib?
How?
When their mouths are moving.
He's a pretty good kid.
All of my kids are pretty good kids. But you can always
Figure
tell.
it out, huh?
Yeah, you can usually tell. Is this your first only?
Both, first and only.
First and only. Oh, well, she probably had some experience with that anyway.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, and this happened at what time during the day?
I believe it was about 4, a little after 4, 4:30.
So it was light out.
Yes.
You collided with her car on the driver's side.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. On the door of the driver's side.
The fender.
Fender.
Yes.
Side fender?
Yes, side fender.
Okay. Not the front of the car.
The front fender of the car.
Front fender of the car on the side. I'm talking about it was the side or the front?
The side.
Side. So you collided with her.
Yes.
Because cars don't move sideways.
Yes.
He could have been quite seriously injured.
Yes, he could. He hit the side of the car and he flew up onto the hood and then kind of rolled across the hood, hit my windshield, and then fell onto the ground. And when I stopped, he jumped up, appeared at my window, and apologized, and then asked me if I was okay.
What did he say?
Just said he was sorry. And then he asked me if I was okay. And then I asked him if he was okay. And then he asked me if I was okay. And it went back.
So far, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And which I was very impressed by, that he was more worried about me than anything else. I moved my car out of the road, onto the side of the road. There was an EMT that was across the street from us, and he came over and assessed him if there was any more damage. He got some road rash and things like that, but he was not seriously hurt, at least that we noticed at the time.
Do you have the police report?
I do.
I'd like to see it, please, Kevin.
Carrie hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She reviews it.
One witness said that he was right next to you and that you went past him and that the light was red. His light was red, which is why he was stopped. That's what I'm reading. He did say that his light was red when the kid initially passed in front of him. Did you get a copy of this police report?
I've seen it, yes.
Explain to me, would you put on this again and leave that one on because that's the version that I believe. Would you walk over there and explain to me what cut the corner was, what you were doing? It talks about cutting the corners. So I want you to understand, I believe that, based upon what I'm reading here, I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want you to show me how you cut the corner.
So I was coming to this one, and I went through, and instead of going here and just going through the sidewalk, I just went like around here and through this crosswalk.
What's cut the corner?
Cut the corner here, right there.
You mean just that little space is what you're talking about? You cut the corner?
Yeah, I went from about...
I want you to understand, I believe that you were in the street. I believe you were in the street, not in a crosswalk. So let's run through that again. Would you please show me what cut the corner was?
Went through here, I came here, and I cut here. So right there, I cut the corner.
Judy gestures for Jacob to return to his table.
He is a nice boy, Mr. Simonet.
Thank you.
Caption, coming up.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17, but it was like a tank. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel.
And later today.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Carrie, Joseph, and Jacob.
Carrie Cargill claims Joseph Simonet owes for damage after his 15-year-old son hit Carrie's car while riding an electric skateboard.
Okay. The police determined that based upon the eyewitness testimony that the pedestrian, Jacob, is at fault and believed to have crossed the intersection before having the right-of-way. The vehicle had the green light. In any event, do you have photographs of your car?
Carrie with a photo.
This happened in August, and you were called to the scene by your son, is that right?
Correct.
And you got there, you know that he was a little banged up, but thankfully...
He was in
okay.
an ambulance when I arrived, but shortly after, yes, he did walk out of the ambulance and suffered some injuries, which I have pictures of if you'd like to see them.
I'm sure he was banged up. He had bruises from falling off the...
From being launched from the vehicle after the collision, correct.
Okay. You know, he was really lucky that she wasn't going faster.
Correct. Could have been much worse. We were
Could have been much
thankful for his health and the outcome of the incident.
You're right. Okay, can I see an estimate to fix your car, please?
A document.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judy reviews it.
What kind of a car do you have?
A 2015 Equinox Chevy?
You had full coverage on the car, is that right?
Yes.
But with a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
So if you put this through to your insurance, you have a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
Right? Anything else you want to tell me, Jacob?
No.
Do you still ride one of those things?
It's broken. I didn't get a new one, no.
It was destroyed in the accident.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17. He bought me the oldest, ugliest car, but it was like a tank. All my other friends were getting these nice, cute little cars, and this one was like an old person's tank Cadillac or something. You know, we're talking 50 years ago. And I said, why do I have to have this car? Everybody else has cute cars. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel. That's pretty much the lesson that I've sent out there. 4,000 pounds of steel. One and only, surrounded by lots of steel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. Thank you, we're finished.
This court is adjourned.
Carrie, then Joseph.
Overall, I'm happy.
She had some fault due to hitting a pedestrian in a crosswalk.
It was surreal, like out of the movies.
Your heart stops, and all you can do is look for the car keys and panic and get there as fast as you can.
I am so glad that he was okay.
I remember just flying through the air, and then I was on the ground, and I got right up.
Be very careful.
Count your blessings and enjoy every moment that you have, because things could change in an instant.
Sarah and Judy.
I know these electric scooters and skateboards are very popular, but even before this case, I tried to look up any rules, laws, regulations. There are a few for electric motorbikes and things like that, but far fewer than I would expect for a machine that can go up to 17 miles an hour when you're 15.
I think that you're right. I think that since those things have become so popular, there really have to be enforced rules. And parents, and this is a very nice father and son, but I've seen kids weave in and out of cars. It always looked like an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah. And this one could have ended in a real tragedy.
He was lucky, and his father knew he was lucky.
Yeah.
Case 2124, McPherson versus Hall. All parties, please step forward.
Gerald McPherson is suing his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, for money she received during their relationship.
Mr. McPherson.
Yes.
How old are you, sir?
40.
What kind of work do you do?
Home care aid.
Independent, or do you work for a company?
Home care aid agency.
For an agency?
Yes.
How long have you been working for them?
About a year now, but I've been doing home care for about 3 years.
Prior to working for them the past year, and you're still working for them, is that right? Was there a period of time when you were unemployed?
Not more than maybe 3 weeks, but since I know Ms. Hall...
No, I don't want to know about Ms. Hall.
No, I'm telling you my employments that since I've lived in her residence, I've always worked. I worked at the zoo, Census Bureau.
Don't try to think ahead of me.
Okay.
There was a period of time in 2020, according to you, that you became homeless and were living in a shelter.
Yeah,
and that was in what month in 2020?
In June. So if I can explain the situation. I was living in a house that a slumlord wasn't doing the repairs. So I ended up forcing his hand, him selling the property, and the new landlord and my...
Could you look at me when you're talking?
I'm sorry. The new landlord and her and my other ex, they kept the property. I moved out. I went to a shelter because I didn't want nothing to do with her or the...
You're talking about her?
No, ma'am.
Well, then don't keep pointing to her. I'm asking you...
I'm just pointing in general. I'm not pointing at her.
You actually pointed
I'm sorry.
to her. When you were in the shelter, were you employed?
Yes, for the Census Bureau,
Okay.
doing the census. I was actually out in the field knocking on doors. I was an enumerator.
So you were not working in home health care, you were a census taker?
At that time, yes.
And did you have a child living with you?
Yes, well, not in the shelter, no. I could not have my daughter in the shelter.
How old is your daughter?
10.
And where is her mother?
She's deceased.
Where was your daughter living when you were in the shelter?
With my mother.
Is she living with you now?
She's been with me since June.
In a new apartment?
Yes, I moved in August 1st.
She goes to school from your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, you became acquainted with Miss Hall, and there came a time shortly thereafter, uncross your arms, and there came a point shortly thereafter when you moved into her home.
In August, yes.
Of 2020. And you remained in her home until what month and year?
August of 2022.
And in what month and year did you regain custody of your daughter?
June of 2022.
So there was a period of 2 months when you and your daughter lived in Miss Hall's home?
You could say that, but...
Well, I'm saying that because I just asked you a question about timeline.
No, because me and Ms. Hall was going through our dispute about this money, my daughter was staying with my grandma. I only brought my daughter there on certain occasions.
When I say you regained custody of your daughter, was that a court order?
Yes, I have it right here.
Just a second. Was the child removed by court order from your custody?
It was removed because the house...
Don't tell me because.
Yes,
it was yes.
Yes.
I have lots of things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Child was removed from your custody.
Because I didn't have nowhere to live at the time.
Was the child removed from your custody before you moved into the shelter?
She was removed because I was in the shelter.
Did you take her to the shelter?
No, I was not allowed to because there's no men.
So at that time,
female
did she go and live with your mother?
Of course.
Was that by court order?
No, it was I
brought her to your mother.
Yes.
May I see the court order that involves custody, please?
Here you go.
I'm not getting an answer.
This is the court order, and this is these two forms.
Gerald hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
Now, that court order is the current.
Okay, so the child was placed with the Commissioner of Social Services in Pennsylvania. And the child was placed in kinship foster care, which is a program that I am very familiar with the child's paternal grandmothers. So in June of this year, the child was returned to your custody. At some point in August of this year is when you and the defendants separated and you left the house. This is your claim. Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing?
Caption, coming up.
I don't want to go back to the year Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to...
I don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Gerald and Natasha.
Gerald McPherson claims his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, wrongfully spent the money he gave her for rent.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I want you to look at me when you talk, not at the papers.
No, I was going
to... In what kind of gambling thing did you win money?
I betted on 25 games.
What 25 games?
NBA, college, hockey.
Okay, and you bet where?
On FanDuel. It's an app called FanDuel.
Okay, and you won?
Yes.
I don't understand the whole thing. I don't want to learn the whole thing. I don't care about the whole thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
Okay, $36,742, and after taxes, $26,889.
On what date?
So I won the bet on the 28th. It came into my account.
28th of what?
January.
Of what year?
This year.
And you had been living with Miss Hall for 2 years?
Prior, yes.
Okay, and you were working according to you all of that time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Were you paying any rent to Miss Hall?
I have receipts.
Yes, I want to see those. How much rent were you paying?
So when I met Miss Hall...
I don't want to go back to the year Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to pay
I don't know. I want you to
rent.
Be dishonest with me.
Half her rent is like $425, and she had me pay half the gas and half the electric and half the cable.
Her rent was $425?
No, it's $850. I had to split it. We're paying half and half.
Miss Hall?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I do customer service.
And who else lives in the apartment with you?
My children.
How old are they?
14 and 13.
How large is the apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom.
And the total rent is $850?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no subsidy involved?
No subsidy at all.
Okay. And you have a lease?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you charge, if anything, Mr. McPherson as rent?
$425.
Well, that doesn't quite sound fair, does it? Did she make a figure with you of $425?
I paid more than that. I paid $425. That's half of the rent. I paid half of the electric and half of the internet bill.
There are 4 people in the house?
Yes.
Right? Why is he paying for...
only
Why was he paying for half the rent?
Oh, my children don't work, and his child didn't work either.
His child wasn't with you?
The child came with us in June, but she had visitations on weekends.
I don't care if she has visitations. Your children live with you.
Yes.
They don't have to work. They're your children. They're not his responsibility. Okay, I just want to know where everybody's head is at. There came a point, Miss Hall, when Mr. McPherson gave you $6,000 in cash.
No, not in cash.
Check.
No, both of them were wired. One was directly wired into our Bank of America account.
When? Just a second. When?
The first transaction was on January 31st. The second transaction...
January 31st of?
This year. And the second transaction was the next day, February 1st. $12,000 total.
Do you acknowledge, Ms. Hall, receiving $12,000 in your account from Mr. McPherson, or do I have to look at his records?
I do not acknowledge. He gave me $6,000 and $4,500.
$6,000 and $4,500, Mr. McPherson. Does that sound right?
No, it's not right, and I'm going to show you.
Let me see your bank record.
All right, hey,
and
sir.
Let us assume that it's $6,000 and $4,500 that he gave you in this year, 2022.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Let us assume for the moment that you're correct, because you're suing for $6,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because the first initial $6,000 was 8 months rent. That I'm not.
Let us assume that you are correct, that he gave you $6,000 and $4,500. I'm taking you at face value. In January and February of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the money for?
That he gave me?
Yes. The two different amounts of money.
Yes.
There's a $6,000 and a $4,500.
$4,500 was for me to pay my car note off. And
hey, just a second.
Go ahead.
Why would he pay your car note off?
He said he wanted to.
Oh, no. That's ridiculous. Ms. Hall, let me just check.
Can I say something?
No.
He even wrote that on there for your car note.
No, you said in January he won a bet and cashed it out. A few days later, he gave me money via Cash App to catch up on his rent and as a thank you for helping him out. I don't see anything here about gift for a car note in your answer.
So he gave me the money for the car note, and as far as the Cash App money, he gave me money lots of times. So yes.
No, I'm talking about the $6,000, madam.
Yes.
Let us assume he gave you $4,500 to pay off your car note. That's what you said.
Correct.
What's the $6,000 for?
The $6,000 was for us to move.
For who to move?
Me and him.
Show me.
The $6,000?
Yeah, show me that there's proof. He says he gave you the money according to his complaint to hold for him.
Yes.
Shh.
Just
a second.
A document.
Yeah, February 3rd, he gave you $6,000. This just says he gave it to you.
Yes.
And?
And he told me to hold it so we can move.
Well, you didn't move.
No,
you didn't. Shh. He told you to hold it for him so that you could all move.
No.
So who could move?
So me and him and our children could move.
Well, that's what I just said.
I apologize.
So that we can move.
Correct.
But you didn't move together.
Correct.
So you have to give him his money back. That's simple.
Thank you.
Just a second. That's simple. If you say he gave you the money so that the two of you could move and that event never took place, but he in fact moved out, you owe him $6,000.
But then he agreed.
Just a second. That's an easy. Okay. Do I have to deal with anything else? Money for lost wages, rent, utilities? Forget it. He paid all of that with the $4,500 when he paid off your car note. Come on, let's get it together. Lost wages. What are the lost wages for?
But then I had to take off from work because of the PFA, and I had to take off from work to go file out the court and things like that. But in the midst of him saying the $6,000, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay all of his rent.
He paid off your car note. You owe him $6,000. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Natasha.
Well, I don't agree with the judge's decision. I don't think I owe him the money.
That's what women do.
Because he gave me a gift and he didn't pay rent.
I also spent $2 grand on her in gifts.
What's done is done.
I'm taking a break from women for quite some time now.
Sarah and Judy.
So I'm glad that the plaintiff's daughter didn't have to go into the larger foster care system and was able to stay with plaintiff's mother. But I was curious that if this was a temporary slip up and he wasn't going to be permanently without housing, why wouldn't he go with his daughter to his mother's house? I was surprised you didn't ask him that question.
You're right.
Fees.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judge Judy enters.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches the bench.
Case 2128, Hall versus Benedum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hall, you and the defendant are neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
And your houses are right next to each other.
Hers is on the corner, mine is
Right next to her.
Yes.
Got it. What your complaint is that I see where those two, the truck and the vehicle behind it.
The trailer, yes, ma'am.
The trailer. The property to the left of that is your house.
Yes, ma'am.
And the property to the right of that is the defendant's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant, in writing, agreed to sell you that little piece of property that looks like it's been carved out of her property.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had a narrow driveway, you wanted to park these two vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Based upon that agreement, you went ahead and did some work on that piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
You put down gravel, you planted flowers, all to make it look as if that piece of property was part of your house.
Not so much to make it look like it's part of my house so I can get in it, because the agreement was that there was 3 pine trees there prior to her telling me that I can buy the property.
No. The 3 trees that are there had nothing to do with this except that they were taken down. And were they taken down and the removal of the trees was paid for by you or by her?
By both of us.
By both. Okay. So you asked to have the trees removed, and you both paid to have the trees removed.
Okay.
Not only did you cut the trees down, but you took that property and made it look like yours. You say that there was an agreement in writing for her to sell you that piece of property. So I'd like to see that agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no agreement in writing.
Don't say anything.
The very top line.
Just a second.
Kevin hands a document to Judy, who reviews it.
This is not a contract, sir, to sell land.
I have a lot more.
Shh. Not a contract to sell land. I see what she says to you. I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs. Let's get this in motion ASAP. And then she doesn't hear from you, and that's the 18th of May. And then she writes you again a little bit later, and she says her offer will expire at the end of today's business day, 5/19. And on 5/19, at 10 o'clock at night, you write to her, "Hey, Stacy, I've started working on things this morning. I have already been to the city of Akron, and once they are done and I get a surveyor and so on, I will keep you updated if that's okay. Last, everything is time sensitive, and I'm working as fast as I can to get the approvals. Just now seeing your texts."
Right.
Okay. So that's what you're relying on as a contract to purchase property.
Well, the fact that she said that she would sell it to me, and I started all the motion like she said to do. I started all the motions, got the surveyor done, got the deeds done, I got everything done.
All right. That was 5/19/2021. So show me what you did based on this and what you spent based on your belief that she had agreed to sell you the property and you had an agreement for sale, which is like a contract for sale of property. Most people know that when you sell a piece of property, you get a survey, you put it in the contract, you have a contract when the property is going to be transferred. That property would have to be surveyed because clearly you're carving a piece of property out of her property. I want to see what you did and what you spent, because if you spent money based on this, I may consider that as part of your lawsuit, because then it turned out she didn't want to sell you the property. By the way, I wouldn't sell them the property either. It makes your property look ridiculous.
It does. We never agreed to sell the property. Okay.
Did you write, "I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs"?
Yes, I never agreed to sell the property until I told him he was no longer allowed to park there. It was never discussed.
What is this?
Depending on the stipulation that my mortgage company requires, which is an appraisal, they had to approve the selling of the property.
All I'm interested in is this one line. The other ifs fall after that. It says, "I'm agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs."
Yes.
Okay, so you did that.
Yes.
I want to see the things that you started to do right after May 19th. You said, "I've already started working on things this morning." This is May 19th. "I've already been to the city of Akron."
Yes. This is a receipt showing the $800 from the surveyor.
Okay, may I see that, please?
There's that one. This is a receipt from the attorney where I had the deed paperwork done.
I'm looking for a date on this, sir. I'm looking for dates on these things.
Look at this one, too.
Okay, June 15th. What is this?
That's actually when I paid to have the 3 deeds made up. That's the $450 that I had to pay to the attorney for him to make the 3 deeds up. And everything Stacey had to do was sign them.
And that was June 15th. That was not quite a month later.
Right. I started the next day.
Okay. And this is so far what you spent in reliance on her statement that I'll sell you the property for $1,000.
This is a breakdown that I have, that I wrote down Then you can show her that. Of everything, the timeline and...
Now, I don't need a breakdown of the timeline, sir. I need the bills for this, not what you wrote.
Okay.
I need the bills for 6 tons of gravel that was in July.
Here's one receipt right here. There you go.
Julian produces documents.
Did he ever give you $1,000?
He never paid me.
Caption, coming up.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Julian and Stacy.
Julian Hall claims his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, owes for building costs and attorney fees. Stacy is countersuing, claiming Julian was illegally parking on her property.
Okay, so far all I have that you paid was $450 for the deeds, $800 for the survey, and gravel to be delivered.
I got the gravel in there. I also have the concrete that I had laid, flowers and stuff that I put in.
Did he pay part of having the tree stumps removed?
We split the cost and the labor of removing the debris of the trees.
No, ma'am, that's not true.
Who wanted the trees removed?
I never had a problem with the trees. I like the trees.
Don't speak.
He wanted the trees cut down so he could have more space. He was already parking underneath the trees with a smaller trailer, just not his truck. He wanted more space, so he came to me and said, hey, what if I split the cost of the cutting of the trees? I said, that's fine, I'll split the cost, that's fine with me. And then I agreed to let him continue to park there as long as there was no tire marks, that's what it was. And then he built this thing.
Well, he formalized parking there. Okay. At what point did Miss Benedum tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
This actually started on 4/3 of 18.
I'm not interested. I'm interested in the beginning of these texts, where you clearly had discussions, trees were removed. I don't quite understand why she allowed you to remove the trees, and I don't understand the whole transaction.
Because it wasn't my choice.
Just a second, it was your choice. You wanted to park there. That's what you wanted.
But the trees was dying.
I don't care if they were dying. I don't care if they were shriveled up. I don't care. You carved out a piece of property. Now, if you carved out a piece of property that belongs to her and you didn't have an appropriate agreement in writing, which it has to be, then I believe, based upon her statement that you acted on, you're entitled to whatever you spent to renovate that property. Do you understand? You're not entitled to the property.
No, I understand.
You're not entitled to the property. You're entitled to what you spent to renovate the property. So now I want you to tell me on what date did she tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
That was 7/20 of 21. After I got everything done and called her, and asked her, could she meet me at the bank? She said, no, I'm not selling to you for $1,000. But it goes deeper than that. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It goes deeper than that because when it came to the trees, I didn't approach her with the trees. She came to me and said, since the tree was dying, I said, well, I'll go in half with you. At that point, I said, when can I use the property? She said, you can use it as long as you need it. So that's when I started investing all this money into the property.
So what? I don't care. She said to you, you can use it as long as you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I said nothing permanent.
She said, as long as I need it. That's why I invested the gravel.
Okay. What I'm telling you, sir, is the purchase and sale of property has to be with a certain formality. If you dealt with an attorney, the attorney would tell you that it had to be in a formality, signed by her, signed by you, the contract that provided for sale, when it took place, what the survey was, whether her bank would agree to let her sell off a piece of the property because you have a mortgage, all of those things. That's why agreements to sell real property, which is land, have to be in accordance with a certain set of rules. This doesn't make it. However, if you relied on her statement in order to improve the property, to make it comfortable for you based upon her text message, I believe that you are entitled, based upon the text message, to what you spent to improve it. But you have to understand, she's not going to let you park there anymore.
And I'm okay with that.
Just a second. Are you still parking there?
No, ma'am.
Since when?
I would say September of 2022.
So you were parked there in July of 21, August of 21, September of 21, October of 21, November of 21, December of 21, January of 22, all the way up to September. You were parking there.
This is because we had...
Don't give me a because.
No,
that's either a yes or a no.
I was parked there, but we also had a civil case, too.
Which he dismissed 2 days
We
before.
had a civil case. She called the police.
He called the police on me twice.
Just, the question was, when did she tell you she wasn't going to sell you the property?
September, when she agreed not to meet me at the bank, that's when she told me she wasn't going to sell.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
I never knew we were meeting at a bank.
Just a second. So
I can do better
in
than that.
September of 2022, she advised you.
No, I'm sorry, it was August of 2021.
Well, show me in August of 2021 that you told him you weren't selling him the property.
Here's.
Okay, I'll take both, Kevin.
Julian and Stacy hand documents to Kevin.
Thank you.
He brings them to Judy, who reviews them.
And this was after she agreed.
Shh. Okay. I'm just looking for the date on this.
Yeah, there's not a date on there, I'm sorry, but that was after May 18th of 2021. That was maybe July or August of 2021 when I told him, since he didn't meet all the requirements, that I no longer want to sell
What
it.
requirements?
He never met the requirements of paying me the money or getting the land appraised. The only thing he didn't do that my mortgage required is the appraisal.
Ma'am, that wasn't true because I did everything that the city of Akron told me to do, who deal with this on a regular.
Did you get an appraisal?
I got the land surveyed. She didn't tell me about nothing about appraisal until after I got everything done.
That's why you have a contract in writing for the sale of property, sir. I don't think you did anything intentionally wrong, but there was an appraisal that was necessary. Clearly, if she has a mortgage and a bank is giving her a certain amount of money on a parcel of property, and she wants to sell off a piece of that property, the bank is going to want to know how much the value of the property has diminished by her selling it to you. So you have to have an appraisal. Do you understand?
I understand that.
Okay, and you didn't have an appraisal. I'm not going to tell it to you again. And all I want to know is when she first told you that you didn't have a deal. So once she told you that you didn't have a deal, whatever else you invested in this property was on you.
No, and I didn't invest anything else other than getting an attorney and paying everything I need to pay him.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Caption, coming up.
You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free because she was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Julian and Stacy.
Julian Hall has accused his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, of breaking their agreement. Stacy claims there was never an agreement and is countersuing for parking fees.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Because I had already had an investment after she said she was going to sell it to me. Once the attorney got involved, he told me to dismiss the case. Then after that, like 3 days later, I moved off the property.
Just a minute. So who brought a civil case?
I did.
When?
Last year of 21.
And what happened with that case?
It was dismissed.
What did you bring a case against her for?
For breach of contract.
It was dismissed because there was no contract.
Your Honor, can I say something?
What?
He made all these improvements in 2018 before we ever discussed selling the property.
You mean he put the gravel in?
Yeah.
Well, how could he put the gravel in over trees?
The trees were cut down in 2018.
Is that right, sir? Hey,
that's correct.
The trees
yes,
that were cut down in 2018, well before this.
Yes.
So you did use it. You used it for how many years? You used it 18, 19, 20, and 21. You used it. You used it. You had value from it. You had value from somebody else's property. You used her property for you to park on. You can't.
I wouldn't have done none of this if she would have told me no. Every move that I made, I asked her first. I got it in text message. I asked her, can I do this? Can I do this? She said, yeah, go ahead and do it. If she would have said no, I wouldn't have done none of it. I wouldn't have put a dime into the property.
I'm not going back to 2018, sir. If you made these improvements in the property in 2018 or 2019, before there was any hint of a writing that she was going to sell you property.
She had a verbal that I can park there as long as I wanted to.
Okay, your case is dismissed. Mr. Hall, you don't have a case. You did park there until she told you not to park there anymore. And you had the benefit of parking there for at least 3 years.
I got money invested that she told me
you
that
had
I
the
can do
benefit
it.
of parking your things there for at least 3 years. Are they gone now?
His truck and trailer are, but the gravel's still there, and we have to clean up, get rid of that stuff.
It was a huge mistake, so you're going to have to take care of that yourself.
Okay.
And I would take care of that because that looks ridiculous.
I will.
That looks ridiculous. You have a counterclaim.
Yes.
For parking. Forget it.
But listen, I told him he couldn't park there back in May of 2021. He continued to park there till...
So you should have been more vigilant.
My attorney didn't notify him till May of this year of 2022 that if he continues to park there, we'll charge him $75 a day. And he continued to park there until the case was dismissed in August of 2022. So I'm only suing him for May of 2022 to August of 22.
And did he move it?
He did.
Okay. You still living there?
Yes.
Do you talk to him?
No.
Had you talked to him previously?
Yeah.
We had a good relationship.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching. And if she had it appraised, and if it's something that you want, and she had, I guarantee you that that little piece of property would be appraised at a far higher cost than $1,000. Guaranteed. And I guarantee you that her bank would say, you can't let him buy that piece of property for $1,000. How much of a mortgage are you carrying?
$76,000.
Not going to let her sell off that piece of property. You had the benefit of that piece of property for several years. I have to tell you that I really think that it's much nicer to look at plain grass than it is to look at a trailer and a truck from her backyard.
Your Honor, I wouldn't have done none of it if you would have said do it.
Do you know what your attorney said to you? I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And Mr. Hall, that's what I'm telling you. I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And from what I know now, this all started in 2018 before there was any discussion of buying the property that you can prove to me. Because the thing that you gave me was in 2021. I have to tell you, you never had a problem because she was a good neighbor. If she let you park on her property, so if you think you're the one who's been aggrieved here, the truth of the matter is I don't think that you're the one who was aggrieved here. She let you park on her property. I have to tell you, I wouldn't have let that happen. I had a neighbor who had an easement. And I said, all I want from you when I bought the house was I want you to say that you will never try to claim this property by adverse possession and that you understand that it's my property. And then you can use it because it was a place that looked like it was part of his driveway. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not signing that. I said, if you don't sign it, I'm going to put a fence right in the middle of your front lawn, which is where my property line is. I don't hear from him. I said, you have 24 hours to sign the paper or I'm putting a fence right in the middle of your front lawn because that's my property and you have an easement. And he didn't sign it. He would have lived with the fence until today because it's still there. Now his children are living with the fence because he's gone. You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free for 4 years. For free. Because she was a good soul. She's not a bad guy. She was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2. She let you park there for 4 years.
I wouldn't have been there.
Goodbye, we're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Outside the courtroom, Julie and then Stacy.
She knew what type of work I did, so she said as long as I needed it.
It was just a tough lesson of being nice to the wrong person.
It did look like it was part of my yard, so I get that part.
I hope we can be cordial and just move on with our life.
It is what it is.
Sarah and Judy.
This is a great example of the statute of frauds and why it exists. So all writings for the sale of land, real estate, have to be in writing and signed by both parties. I'm sure it was created for situations just like these. There's a lot of moving parts. There's mortgages, there's banks involved a lot of the times.
There are easements, there are water rights,
Exactly.
there are all kinds of things.
Legally, they're some of the most complex documents that get drawn up. So it can't be a text message for